I think I'm going to get started, and I'm also keeping an eye on the waiting room. I may have to admit people as I go. So welcome to everyone. We're really excited to open our virtual doors to you, to let you learn a little bit about the Yale Neurology Residency and learn what sets us apart. And thanks to all of you for the questions you've sent in advance. My name is Jeremy Moeller. I'm one of the I am the Yale Neurology Residency Program Director. I've been doing this job for about 7 years or so. It truly is the greatest privilege of my life to do this. I love being a residency program director. And I'm going to make some brief remarks really that address some of the frequently asked questions that we had, but I'm going to highlight most of the people who are on video right now, which is really a large number of our Yale Neurology residents. And once I give a brief introduction to the program, what I'll do is ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell their PGY year, and maybe just briefly speak to what led them to choose residency at Yale and what are some of the things that set Yale apart. So I warned you guys in advance, but you can start thinking about that while I speak for a couple of minutes. So we're on all the webs. We're on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. I really don't know how that works, but I think we're on that too, as I understand. And we have websites. We have lots of educational offerings. And one of the things I like about that is you can see a little bit about our approach to education. We have a podcast that's actually pretty well received, which is very gratifying for exam prep. It's very popular among neurology residents, but a great way to hear about our approach to teaching and learning in the program. And you can always email me, Michelle Stafford Worth. You'll get to know as you apply to our program. She's our program coordinator, and she's on the call tonight. So just anytime reach out and we'll respond to questions. So just a couple of really nuts and bolts things that relate to some questions people have about the program, and particularly at this phase, flying to the residency program. And so we are an advanced program. That is, we start in PGY2, but this was a frequently asked question. We have 10 guaranteed medicine slots for PGY1 residents. And over the last 2 years, we've actually, all of our PGY1s did do their medicine at Yale. So 19 of the 20 residents over the last 2 years did their medicine rotation at Yale, and some of the residents can speak to that experience as we move to the second phase. The one who didn't actually did a full 3-year internal medicine residency and now is part of our program too. So everybody is a Yale person really from the start of their residency. However, we like to provide the opportunity for people to have the best of both worlds. And so I see Gabrielle on the call, for example, who stayed close to Baltimore for some personal reasons for her PGY 1 year and then came to Yale, and maybe she can speak about that, about making the transition in the PGY 2 year when necessary. The PGY 1s, if they do PGY 1 year here, get 6 weeks of neurology rotations, 4 weeks of strokes, 2 weeks of NICU, and probably the biggest advantage to that is we negotiated years ago when we came up with this that they would do no weekends or nights during that time, which is really nice because the internal medicine program still has 28-hour call and funny 6 and 7 day things and things like that. So it's nice to have this break. About 95% of our residents pursue fellowships. It's a pretty even mix of inpatient and outpatient specialties. I know that's something people ask about. And approximately 2/3 or so stay at Yale for fellowship. It's increased over the years. That's a reflection of New Haven and the community and our growth. And 9 of the 11 graduates, we had 1 transfer, so 9 of our 11 graduates in the class of 2020 are still here, which is really exciting. Just a couple things about the application as you're preparing your materials. We do require a minimum of 3 reference letters. This is all on our webpage if you go to the how to apply or application materials. Maximum of 4 letters, we don't want more than that. At least 1 should have a focus on clinical neurology. Most applicants, you don't have to, but most applicants include at least 1 internal medicine letter, and that does not have to be a department letter. And most neurology departments don't have a department letter, so don't worry about that. And we get it. Look, this year is as scary and weird for us as it is for you. And we understand that many of you, especially international graduates and those of you who might not have extensive neurology training at your home institutions, if you're US grads, that it may be difficult to get neurology letters. And we understand that. We're going to take that into account, and don't worry about that. If you have to comment upon that, you can just make that comment in your personal statement, and I'd advise that. A couple of people asked how we're going to do things differently this year with virtual interviewing. We had been toying with the idea of increasing the number of people we were going to interview with, anyway, and we're planning right now, we're going to see how things go, on interviewing about 120 applicants, which is about 20% more than usual. And that'll be 12 applicants on each interview day. And we have 10 interview days, and we have a backup day if needed, depending on how things go. Our application overview is holistic. We have at least 2 reviewers for all of our applications. We will make sure that all our reviewers have education on sources of bias in applications and grades. There's no USMLE cutoff score. That's really important. We do look at the USMLE scores. They're available to us. They are one piece of information as part of the holistic review, but we have no filters. We look at all the applications. And we understand, especially for international graduates, we understand that Step 2 CS and CK may have some delays. We get that. And I think like a lot of other programs, we're taking to that account. We do interview international graduates. It's a small number. I will say that the odds are lower, and I'll say that realistically. And I say that anytime somebody asks, it's typically less than 10% of our interview pool. US experience is really preferred. I would have said years ago, last year, required, but preferred because we understand about some of the nuances of this year. And we do say you should have graduated from medical school within the last 5 years. We do offer both J1 and H1B visas. I'm Canadian and have had both of these visas at different times in my life, so I understand a little bit about that. And scholarly work is really something we're going to be looking for with the international graduates as well. Here are our criteria for holistic review. We do an application review, and then the interviewers make a review. This is distributed to our entire interview committee, and I think it's fair to share this. We do look at medical school grades and your dean's letter. We look at research and other scholarly work. We look at leadership and engagement. And we are interested in resilience, evidence of distance traveled, difficulties overcome. I think that does play a role in how we view applicants. In terms of reviewing after an interview, we're interested in your potential academic and scholarly, not necessarily what you've done, but your interests and your ability to get things done and so on. Your leadership potential, interpersonal skills are going to be huge. We have a really tight-knit team. We're really proud of the people, the human beings we have as residents, and that's critically important as we build a class. And we do have behavioral-based questions. And this year we piloted it last year with our residents. I found it a very good experience in terms of eliminating bias and or reducing bias and providing some additional insights into applicants. And we are going to look at 4 domains this year with structured questions. We are finalizing our interview experience, but I will say that we will be doing a day. We're not going to stretch this out over a long period of time. You have lots of things to do and lots of busyness, and we want you to have sort of a Yale experience for the day. We are on social media. We will provide other information about the program. We'll keep our website up to date, and our committee is really interested in that. But for your experience, it's a good day because we respect your time and really want to concentrate that. We will do something the night before, which will include probably a panel discussion with a group of residents. And we really understand that it's important for you to have opportunities for one-on-one and small group discussions with individual residents. And we're going to be really thoughtful about that, but really emphasize those opportunities. On the interview day, we will have an overview of the program, but probably some of that will be pre-recorded. We realize that that can be pretty boring at times, and so we'll provide some of that in sort of a quote-unquote flipped way. We like to do lots of interviews because it really provides many different perspectives, 5 or 6, probably a couple with residents, 2 or 3 with faculty members. I meet everyone, and then probably one with one of our leadership group, the vice chairs, and then a short time with the chairs. We are going to work on a virtual tour, but we'll probably have some of that online as well. We would like to share something about our clinical case discussions and faculty panel. And importantly, you do not need to prepare a second interview or a separate interview with the preliminary internal medicine program. That will be incorporated into the day. We are going to merge our research tracks starting in 2021, and the website is still being updated with all of the details. We did have a direct entry research program, and that has been successful. Shobit's in that program right now. He's on the call. But we've decided to really just open up these opportunities for any resident who's interested in research, regardless of their prior experience. Our experience has been that we've had great experience with both people who had matched into the IMP program and directly into the residency program. And we're just interested in scholarly potential with everyone. So we will not be doing a separate match for the IMP. People ask about the X+Y. We were early in that. We've been doing it for a couple of years. We have a 5+1. We have no 28-hour call. We have an excellent track record of matching people to both inpatient and outpatient specialties, depends on the year. And my hot take on this is that specialty interviews are way too early for a lot of programs. The residents on the call know that I rant about this. The AAN is really moving towards moving some of these later. Some are reasonable, some are just way too early. And I would like to see the world change by the time you all on the call are coming through. We've grown tremendously. If you were on the New England session last week, you probably saw our growth. Our number of residents has doubled over the last 10 years. Number of clinical faculty has tripled or so. Our number of clinical fellows has increased about 5-fold. Some of you have asked about APPs, advanced practice providers. That's increased by about 6 times, 6-fold in the last 10 years, and continues to grow. And our residents can speak about working with advanced practice providers, and our clinical and scholarly growth in terms of numbers and all that kind of stuff has grown tremendously. So, you know, we are a growing program. We have a number of tracks, and I'm open to different discussions about those. You'll get more of that on the website, and lots of leadership opportunities, and our residents can speak to some of those. We have really emphasized this year a commitment to diversity and inclusion. I think this was an opportunity for us to do better, and actually a lot of our focus and commitment to improving our approach to diversity and inclusion came from the residents. And a lot of people ask about how residents make changes and what influence residents have and what kind of voice. And it was really our residents who recognized that as you get very senior in our department, very much like a lot of different departments, you start to get more male and more white. And that is not reflective of the population we serve, and it's not reflective of our community. And we need to have a pipeline to make that better. There needs to be an inclusive environment. One of the people anonymously asked about our approach to different types of diversity, including LGBTQ plus approach, and I think this would fall under the umbrella of the Committee for Diversity and Inclusion and its subcommittees, and it's something that's being actively sort of worked on in that group. One thing, actually, Jeff Dewey, who was on the call, said, you know, everything is subject to change, and you know, the way that the residency program is now may be different than the way it's going to be by the get here, and it's certainly going to be different by the time you leave. And the general advice I would have is listen to the residents about how they have been able to influence that change, how the department and the program have responded to the need for change, and how we've adapted over time, because I think this is one of those things. The residency you're looking at now is going to be different than the resident you see and residents you see. So there may be other elements that would be more important to look at, like the types of people we attract, the types of behaviors that we support, and the ways that we respond to resident concerns. So I have frequently asked questions in 4 different categories, including sort of our program and learning environment, career options, resident social life, and life in New Haven. But I'm actually going to start with our residents, and I'll call on each of you because you're probably in a different order than I am. Melissa, you're in my top corner. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Melissa. I'm one of the PGY3s. I went to NYU for undergrad, BU for med school. Now I'm here in New Haven. And what was it? Why I chose Yale?
Sure. Yeah, or something you like about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing I like about Yale and kind of why I chose it was the residents. Like, basically, we're all pretty close. We all get along. It's kind of like a little family when we're working. It's nice because we're all in the same unit all the time. And so, no matter what service you're on, you're kind of seeing the same people over and over again. And it's just nice kind of being with your friends all day.
Babla, you're next on my screen.
Hey, my name is Bombale. I'm one of the PGY3s as well. I went to Cornell for undergrad. I went to Cornell for med school. I'm here now. I picked Yale because I had a lot of the concrete things I was looking for in a residency program. It had good breadth, it had good depth. There was research opportunities, but ultimately, back in the day when we could see people in person, I got a pretty good vibe when I was here for residency dinner. I felt like the residents were really calm, chill. They had a good relationship with each other, and the attendees that I met, they similarly seemed like normal people, relatable. So I just felt like it would be a good environment to learn, and it has been.
Aaron, I think you're next.
All right, so my name's Aaron. I'm one of the new PGY2s. I did my undergrad at Hopkins. I did my med school at Wake in North Carolina. Kind of similar to Bombay, I wanted, to have a rigorous academic institution where I went to for training, and Yale definitely filled that bill. I also was a couples match. I really liked everyone that I talked to on my interview day. My fiance is in pediatrics here, and she similarly had a wonderful experience with that department. And, all of those things together really kind of drove us back to the Northeast.
I think I can say that whenever possible, and this was certainly Aaron's experience, and we, on average, match one or two people in couples matches. I think New Haven's a great place for couples. It's really strong programs in a lot of different departments. And we make a lot of effort to reach out and coordinate between departments regarding offering interviews to couples. That's something I'm really proactive about, and I know we were in Aaron's case with his partner. Gabriella, you're next on my screen.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Gabriella. I'm a PGY3 as well. I went to UPenn for undergrad and Temple for medical school. Echoing a lot of what's been said, the personal connections that I made here when I first interviewed with the residents, the program director, and the faculty, that really drew me to Yale. I felt like I'd be very challenged, but also very supported. And that's definitely been the case. Also, in looking at a recent match list for fellowship and young faculty where they were going, I felt like my options wouldn't be limited. I like that there's not one particular thing that Yale is, overly represented for in terms of for fellowship matches. Everyone just kind of goes into, it's pretty evenly distributed. So I felt like that meant that there was pretty good exposure throughout, and that I wouldn't be limited when it came time to choose my career.
Shobit.
Hi, I'm Shobit. I went to Cornell for undergrad. I went to Columbia for my MD, PhD. I came to Yale because I actually found the faculty to be very invested in sort of not just how you're doing in residency, but also in your career growth in the future, past residency to fellowship and beyond. And it was a growing department. It had good breadth and depth of clinical education, as well as a pretty, a very good opportunities for research. And that's a lot of the reasons why I chose coming to Yale.
And Shobit, you're in the R25, applying for the R25, and your project was with Hal Blumenfeld, right?
Yes, and I'm in the YINP program here.
All right. Amy, I have you next.
Hi there, my name is Amy. I'm a PGY4 from California. I'm a transplant now. Did my undergrad at UC Berkeley, public health, did my med school at University of Vermont. I think definitely Yale was my first choice. I wanted to go somewhere where people were kind, where it was a good group of people to work with, to learn with, and overall good culture, not just within neurology, but overall the larger health system as well. And I have found that to be very, very much true. And kind of a lot of what everyone else said, I think I really looked a lot at, where did the former residents go? What kind of career paths they choose? And could I see myself in one of those roles? And everyone went into very varied types of disciplines and where they're practicing, and that was something that was really important to me. And also, New Haven's a really easy place to live, and residency is hard, and I think this program in New Haven was perfect for what I wanted from residency.
And Amy, you're as a PGY4, so you are going into neuroimmunology, and you're going to Columbia, right? Which was your first choice for fellowship.
Correct. Yeah, and I thought heavily about one of my other colleagues, John Peters. He's also a PGY4. He's staying here, so I think it's definitely great, and there's a major consideration, but there's other personal life factors. So, but everyone's super supportive.
And Katie, I think you're next on my list.
Hi everyone, my name's Katie. I'm one of the PGY2s. I did my undergrad at Cornell and then my medical school at SUNY Upstate, which is one of the New York State schools, and then came here. I definitely will echo what Aaron and Dr. Moeller said about couples matching. My partner actually also is in pediatrics, just like Aaron's. There are actually 3 couples out of our class of 10. And we were struck by the proactiveness of the neuro department and the peds department in trying to make us, interview here together if we wanted to. And was actually the only program that was really proactive about that. So that really stuck out to us. And I think that is very reflective of just the culture of Yale as a whole. I found similar levels of kindness and, interest in supporting us personally in the internal medicine department as well, which I didn't really know anything about truthfully until I kind of got here. So that's really a big part of why we came here, as well as just the location. Being from upstate New York, I never really enjoyed big cities, but smaller cities that kind of give you access to the bigger cities is awesome. And we're very close here to New York, to Boston, even some of the other cities on the East Coast are only a couple of hours away. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
So Kevin, you're up next.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin. I grew up in Michigan, did my undergrad at the University of Michigan, did med school in Boston at BU with Melissa. As far as, why Yale, one of the big things for me is educational theory and how we think about educating ourselves and how we think about being educated as, future physicians. And I felt like in my conversation with faculty at Yale that there was a lot more thought to, not just what material are we going to teach you, but how are we going to go about teaching? How do we structure both the didactic and clinical bedside teaching in a way that's going to make it really effective and is going to produce really effective future physicians. And I felt like I got much more of that here than almost anywhere else. So that was a big factor for me.
You may recognize Kevin's voice because he's been a co-host on our podcast at different times. Speaking of education, and a great job. And I think we're due for some more sessions, Kevin. And I think Mary, you're the last one that I have on the list, unless I've missed somebody.
Right. Hi, everyone. Oops. I'm Mary, PGY4 resident. I did my undergrad at Providence College in Rhode Island, and I had a 2-year stint at the NIH before I came to medical school here at Yale. What was the second thing? Oh, why did I choose to come here? So I had the experience of having gone to med school here, and so having seen it as a medical student, how the neurology residency was here. And I think similar to what a lot of my co-residents have echoed is, you're going to get a good educational experience, I think, most of the places that you go. But the things that were important to me were an environment where I would feel content and happy and comfortable with, the people that I was working with, because that's the circumstances you learn best in is when you're happy and you're somewhere that you like. And I really enjoyed the residence here when I was a medical student, and I enjoyed the faculty too. It was a really great teaching experience. And I knew that it was somewhere where I could be comfortable and grow. And that's proven very true. I'm very happy here. But yeah, it was mostly for the people. And I'm staying for fellowship too, neuro-oncology. next year, which will be fun.
So Mary, you clearly hate moving too.
I've moved to different apartments. I've moved three places at a time.
So just
yes,
from a blast from the past, and to point out to people, Mary did one of her early clerkships in neurology, and I was the attending. And Jeff Dewey, who was on the call, I don't see him on the video, but he's our associate program director, was your senior resident, maybe junior resident. Is that possible?
He was a junior resident. I don't think he remembers it, but he was a PGY2 when I was a third year med student because I took that extra fifth year.
Amazing.
Time. And that's the nice thing though. People stay. Jeff is now faculty and runs the med student clerkship, and it's a good little family we have here.
And the two of you taught me everything I know.
Naturally. So I want to talk, we're going to go by themes. Oh, by the way, go blue, Kevin. I guess they're playing football, but I won't get into that.
Go blue.
Go blue. So Mary, I'm going to keep you on the spot because we're going to talk a little bit about New Haven. I want to be really proactive in talking about New Haven. I think that is an underappreciated strength of the program. And you heard a lot of our residents talk about that. And it's something that I think a lot of applicants who don't have much experience with New Haven, and I'm certainly not from here, don't appreciate until they come here. And Mary, you've been here the longest. So tell us a little bit about what you like about living in New Haven and what you think maybe misperceptions or things that people might not know about life here.
Yeah, so I think, I definitely had a lot of misperceptions of New Haven before I came here. I remember when I traveled up to interview, I was thinking, Yale sounds like a great place, but I don't think I want to live in New Haven. And I didn't really know why. I'd never been to New Haven, but just kind of had a reputation of not being somewhere very exciting to live for a young person. And so I definitely kind of came with that mindset. But I was very pleasantly surprised when I came to visit what a interesting, cute little city this is. And for someone like me who's, Manhattan, a little overwhelming for me. I'm not a big city person. It's just the right size, and it's enough for someone who's younger and maybe still unattached. You live downtown, there's all these restaurants nearby, and you don't. I think this is a New England thing, but you don't have to travel very far to get outside of the city. We have lots of little farms in the area. Western Connecticut, it's really northwestern Connecticut's very nice. And I think that's part of the thing that's kept me here is it sort of has the variety of things that one would like. And it's easy enough to go to Manhattan should you be so inclined. You just hop on Metro North and it's easy done. But I've been very happy here. And I think I was definitely pleasantly surprised when I came for my interview, and the city's changed a lot in I was 5, 6, 8, almost going into my 9th year here now, I guess. And the city's changed a lot in that time. It's ever growing, ever evolving. New apartments are going up, and there's always new restaurants. And I think in spite of the things kind of came to a halt during COVID, but it's been really neat to see, how creative the city's gotten about, opening up like shutting down roads and opening up sidewalk space for people to eat outdoors. And
So maybe I'm going to ask our other residents, you can just wave at the screen if you want to take this. But what are some potential misperceptions about New Haven or misperceptions you want to correct? Shobit, you're waving here.
Yeah, probably just to give some background. I know Mary and some other people said that they weren't really big city people. I lived in New York City for 10 years, so I was very much a big city person. I loved going to theater, going down to Broadway. When I was in New York City, Times Square still had traffic through it. It didn't have the pedestrian only side. So I lived there for a while, and New Haven offers tons of things to do. And whenever anyone asks me what to do in New Haven, I always ask them, what do they like to do? Because it really offers something for everyone. For me personally, I loved going to theater. I loved going to the Broadway shows. I went to all the new shows at Lincoln Center. And here, I go to a lot of the Yale rep shows. I get season pass, and even outside of New Haven, I go to some of the opera houses to go see the opera. In the summer, there's tons of summer festivals where people like Catherine O'Hara will come up and do shows, and those are super accessible. If you guys like doing stuff outside in the summer, we're along the shoreline, there's beaches. In the winter, I go to Stratton up in Vermont all the time to ski. I do trips to the Finger Lakes. I go to the Hudson River Valley. So in and around this place, there's tons and tons to do, regardless of what you like, and regardless of whether you consider yourself big city, small city, town, or whatever. I think it's just a great place.
Melissa, you've told me before you're a social animal. What are the things you do to stay social? I know post-COVID it's a little harder, although things are opening up a little bit.
Yeah, I am quite the social animal. In terms of things that I do to stay social, I mean, kind of like people were mentioning, downtown. I lived in downtown New Haven, and like going out to the restaurants pre-COVID, basically like all the time we'd go out. We have a lot of outdoor spaces now, so still kind of going out to the outdoor restaurants. There's like a lot of hiking around. There's going to the beaches. You know, like kind of just organizing day trips. I go shopping. There's malls around, so like that's always a lot of fun. I've taken trips up to Boston with friends. I've taken trips down to New York. I've gone to concerts in New York, you know. So just kind of anything you would want to do, you can basically do it here. And then what I like is that New Haven's so accessible that there's like no traffic. You don't have to worry about things like that. So there's a lot more impromptu, I think, hangouts and like social get-togethers.
Anybody else want to take questions about New Haven? Any comments?
Yeah.
Amy, go ahead. We'll do Emily and then Bombale.
So kind of echoing everyone else, there's a lot of stuff. I really care about location. And that was one big thing I like Google Maps before, you know, when I was thinking about residencies. So, you know, I really like rock climbing. There's a rock climbing gym in New Haven, and there's some really large ones within 20 minutes drive. And there's definitely a few different residents that, and I guess now fellow Justine, I definitely would go climbing with her sometimes. Me and Bogdan have gone on, there's a really nice bike path for those of you who like to bike. It goes from like basically downtown New Haven, Yale campus, like all the way up. I think went like 20 something miles on it. And you can like bike somewhere. There's some restaurants along the bike path. Then you can go from there to go on a little hike. So that's pretty nice. Bogdan's the guy who's upside down. Yeah. Just this past weekend, we all went, you know, a big group of us, we all went to the vineyard, socially distanced, or, you know, and that was like a 20-minute drive from downtown New Haven. And similar to everyone else, in terms of location, I live in downtown. I love my apartment. It's very nice. I have a washer dryer, dishwasher, everything. And if I bike to work, it's like 4 minutes. If I walk, you know, to work, maybe it's like 15 minutes. Within like 1 or 2 minutes, there's a ton of restaurants and bars that actually are still open. If I'm currently at the VA, it's like an 8-minute drive. There's a shuttle, should I want to take it. So it's a pretty sweet place.
Bombale, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Shobit said, actually. I grew up in the city, New York City. That means different things to different people, I guess. I grew up in New York City, and I was reluctant to leave a city, a big city, but New Haven has definitely satisfied my craving for a city. It feels like a city. You know, I live downtown, so, you know, I hear people doing things. There's great restaurants, there's good bars. Coming from New York, the cost of living is very affordable. I saw someone asked about like the cost of rent. It varies depending on how far from downtown you want to be, but if you're coming from Boston or New York, you'll be very happy to live. Living downtown, I think the rent could be from like $1,400 to $1,600 for like a 1-bedroom. And then if you live in like East Rock, which really isn't that far, the rent's even more affordable. You can get like a 2-bedroom, you know, for like $1,400. So it's very affordable city. Going back to your initial question about like misconceptions about New Haven, I think there's a misconception that it might be an unsafe city. I personally haven't experienced that myself. Never felt unsafe. I mean, people's experiences vary, so curious. My co-residents think by it, it's like very safe city. And the university itself does a lot to make sure that the students, the residents feel safe as well. You know, if they're out working late or they have trouble getting back home, there are a lot of university resources to make sure you get home safely. So I think that's the one thing I'd want to correct.
That's great. And we're seeing some reasonable rents. We have people who live in the towns outside of New Haven itself, Gabrielle, you're my neighbor in Hamden. Pretty reasonable rent there.
Yeah, as Bambale said, the further out you go from like the center, the more affordable rents, also closer to parks. I'm really close to the Farmington Canal Trail. So yeah, you can get like a 2-bed, 2-bath around here, a same around 15 to 1800. Parking is usually like free around this area as well, whereas in New Haven they would charge. And also just to talk about what Bambale talked about, the safety of a city. My first year here, I lived separate from my spouse. So I was living alone and walking distance to the hospital, and I always felt very safe. It was a 10-minute walk for me every day, leaving at early hours, leaving late. They also have security that can walk you to your car and things like that. But personally, my experience was that after having lived in downtown Philly, also West Philly and Baltimore, I feel like this is a very walkable city. And if you're smart about the times you go out, and if you're smart about walking around, I felt always very, very safe.
All right, I think we're going to segue to pizza, and we'll try to keep this under control a little bit. But Bambale, you were asked a question. Can you speak to it?
Oh yeah, I mean New York pizza is better. Like regular corner store in New York is better, but there's still good pizza here. There's still good pizza here. Pepe's isn't at the top though, but there's still good pizza here.
Any additional opposing views, or we're gonna just let that stand, Kevin?
So Bomblay's wrong. That's okay. I mean, he's got his biases. I mean, it's all right. I've had New York pizza. It's fine. I would say that New Haven pizza is probably the best pizza I have. I'm a little biased to like Midwest styles of pizza. I really like Chicago style deep dish. You're not going to get that kind of pizza here. Modern is definitely the best in New Haven, in my opinion. I'm happy to argue with anybody who wants to go at it about that. But I have very strong feelings about the pizza here. It's very good.
Kevin, I'm a modern guy too, actually. This Sally Pepe's thing, I don't get it, but there you go. So we could go on for a while. I'm going to pick up. Were there any other questions that were non-pizza related that I missed in the chat? I think we're good. All right. So the bottom line is this is a great place to live. I think that the misperception about safety is not fair. I think it's an affordable place, and just judging by the fact that people stay here, for fellowship, it's a great place to live and work, and it has all the things that a young person would want. I sounded like 100 years old when I said that, but there you go. My residents are used to me talking like this. So we're going to segue while I'm rambling here. So this is a question, and the residents can wave at the screen. So this is sort of life with co-residents. So a lot of you said you chose the residency program because of the people, because they seemed like nice, normal people, or at least what we define as normal. So that's really for anyone to judge. But does anybody want to speak to what you admire about your co-residents, what you think set them apart? Okay, Melissa?
I think the biggest thing that sets our co-residents apart is our willingness to help each other, kind of stay late, come early. I know like kind of our class's big thing is we all kind of come a little bit early for our consult shifts just because you don't want that late stroke code that keeps someone staying late. And we're all kind of very cognizant of each other's time and getting each other out on time, and then also each other's like well-being, where you could be on any other service and you hear the stroke pager going off and I'll get a bunch of texts from everyone saying, come, do you need help? Like, are you okay? Did you eat today? Like just little things like that really, I think, set us apart in that not only are we all busy, we're all working, we're all doing our best, but we're also all looking out for each other. And it just kind of helps you get through the day.
Anybody else want to wave and talk about the co-residents? All right, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so just being on internal medicine all last year, me and the rest of the other new twos were all kind of like disparate throughout the hospital. We were all kind of all over the place, but we still managed to get to know each other really well. I feel really close to them, even though we just started neurology now, and then we're obviously working a lot closer. And it's just fantastic. I enjoy them personally. I enjoy them in the hospital. And now I'm also getting to know my wonderful upper levels. Just had a wonderful 2 weeks with Bambale as my stroke senior. Regardless of how busy the service got, he was always on top of everything, I never felt unsafe, always had good education from him. So it's just a lot of shared learning, a lot of shared respect, and just a lot of fun during the day that I really have appreciated.
Actually, on that note, on Aaron's note, does anybody want to speak to sort of the role that residents have in sort of mentoring each other? So the relationship between junior and senior resident, sort of the gradual increase in responsibility. We did get a lot of questions about how much responsibility residents are given, when, how much freedom they have to, do their own thing. And I'd be interested if anybody wants to speak to that. Katie, and then Amy, it looks like.
So I can jump in just with, the experience that I've had over the past couple of months. So, initially we start out sort of gently. So we don't do too many like nights or independent like consult rotations right away. Which is good because it kind of lets you get your feet wet and start understanding, how the different neurology services work and like remembering what an MRI is and things like that. But I was actually the first one in our class to go through our emergency department rotation where we see consults in the ED, which was very scary, but I had the support of many people, some of whom are on this call. Melissa was the consult night float resident while I was on, so we overlapped our shifts by a few hours each day. Amy was actually my buddy for my very first shift. So they do something where for your first like emergency room shift and your first consult night float shift, you get a PGY4 buddy who does literally the entire shift with you. So they're by your side, they're seeing patients with you, they're helping you go through stroke codes, they're helping you to figure out like how to, dispo patients to the appropriate service or to discharge them safely, all the stuff that we have no idea how to do because we've never done it before, which was awesome. And I felt like so much better doing the next shift, independently. And I say that because there were still like 5 other residents around offering to help me every hour. But I really was like well prepared having gone through it with a buddy. And I was even offered, if I felt uncomfortable, that the chiefs would find me a buddy for my next shift if I really felt like I needed it. So there's a lot of support there, and they don't let you do anything unsafe or without help, which I have been very grateful for.
Amy?
I'm going to give Katie a little extra credit because she responded while I was her buddy. This is like last week. Yeah, a week and a half ago. Katie responded to a stroke code and gave TPA real fast. So that was really exciting on our first day. So
it was exciting.
And so I think, so it's great. It's interesting kind of having gone through from the PGY2 side to now PGY4, where my current rotation, I'm the senior at the VA, and now I'm on the side of, the juniors are seeing a consult and they staff it with me. It's interesting kind of how much you are able to grow over the years, how much better you are at things. And I think it's interesting because our program, you actually start doing consults, relatively early in your PGY2. And by the end of your PGY2 year, you've seen most things at least once, if not more than that. When I began my PGY3 year, I felt fairly comfortable. Some of the harder consult rotations that scared you as a 2, you're kind of handling them all right as a 3. And I think some of the 3s can probably speak to that. And now as a 4, I never thought that I would feel comfortable staffing cases, but it's all kind of coming together, and it's kind of awesome. And, I think everyone works really hard. I trust all my residents, I trust all my juniors. So it's kind of cool to see, stepwise increase in responsibility. And of course, there's always attending. They're always available. If you're not sure, you just call them. at 2 a.m. If you need to, you just call them. It's okay. No one's ever going to get mad at you, and everyone's going to always be helpful. And that's really important in a training program. So,
Melissa was my buddy the last 2 weeks. We had lots of phone calls at 3 a.m. I was never cranky, I don't think. Well, maybe a little. I don't know.
Oh, you were always friendly.
So I think we'll transition to sort of the learning environment or the work environment. And I thought there was a very perceptive question by one of the applicants on transformative experiences. So some really important experiences that you might have had that changed the way you felt about yourself or your learning or what you were capable of through your residency. And I must say, while you prepare some thoughts about that, I'm going to get one of the residents to take that question. A lot of the residents are speaking to their growth and their development, the evolution of their experiences. And I'll just make a personal comment here. I think any program director or program leader with a heart finds that the most rewarding thing, to watch year after year the growth of young professionals in a supportive environment, to see people do things they thought they were able to do and do it well with the right support. And, you know, looking at our PGY4s, Amy and Mary, our PGY3s and 2s, you know, just seeing how people are assuming additional leadership roles is really special to me. Do any one of the residents want to speak to specific or general sort of transformative experiences, real opportunities for growth? It's a tough one. Go ahead, Mary.
I accidentally turned my video off instead of the microphone. So I think about this frequently, especially now that I'm a 4. Like Amy was saying, it kind of surprises you. You find yourself in this role, and you're more prepared than you thought you would be. But looking back, the consult night float is one of the rotations that we do, and it's so you overnight for 2 weeks, and you're responsible for all the consults in the hospital. So in the ED, in the inpatient setting, the pediatric neurology consults. And it's very anxiety inducing before you do it the first time, because you're like, especially the peds, I don't know anything about peds, and this is scary, and what am I going to do? And I'm going to become overwhelmed. And it, you know, and like anything, and you're going to find this in residency and medicine and neurology, it's going to be hard at the beginning, but oh my goodness, once you push through it, you realize how capable you are of doing things. I had this one moment where there was a stroke code in the ED, and then there was one up in the CCU, and like managing both of those things at the same time, and then also getting paged by the pediatric neurology team, or the pediatric ICU. You think about that, and it's like, there's no way I would melt. But you can do it, and it feels really good. So I think going through that experience, and the number, like, you know, I'm done with it now, but each time I did it, I felt more and more comfortable, and it's just it's kind of an amazing thing to see in yourself. And I hope you will all experience that too, no matter where you go. But yeah, that was definitely my transformation of residency.
So one of the questions a lot of applicants ask, and it's a frequently asked question, I think, related to the learning environment, is what are some examples of ways that that you were able to change, or that your voice was able to be heard in terms of changing something within the program? No program is perfect. As I said before, I showed the delta, you know, that things will be different for the students on this call than they are for you. I think it's fair to say that I hear your concerns early and often, and it's a very psychologically safe place to share those. But can you share with the group some things that hadn't been working that were worked on, and examples of how that happens? Anybody want to take that? Amy?
So I think it's kind of interesting over the course of the years. So I guess one thing that is very much new this year that a lot of the current PGY3s that their class really advocated for is, you know, our program's busy. And a lot of times there's a lot of stroke codes, a lot of kind of emergent things. And one thing that was kind of hard before was that, there's, like Katie was saying, there's the ED person kind of who's in the first part of the day. There's a swing person who comes kind of midday to kind of help out when things kind of pick up. And then there's a night person. The prior schedule was that, the ED or the swing person would be alone on the Saturday or the Sunday, with the VA on-call residents as backup. And I think everyone, kind of how people have spoken about it before, we're all very cognizant of each other's time. We value each other's time, and you don't necessarily want to have to call someone in to help, but of course everyone's available to. But it was always pretty busy. So I think, with all that said, and with everyone's kind of discussions, the PGY3 class, along with everyone else, really made a big effort to change that. So since, I guess, late spring, that hasn't been the case anymore. The day off is on a weekday where you have pretty much all the inpatient teams available as backup. And on the weekend, you're never going to be just that one person again. And I think that's a huge thing, and I think that change was made fairly quickly. And I think it just shows how responsive. I think this is just one of many examples. Something else is just, I think about our educational didactic time. I think last year there was Monday mornings are always super busy. Coming off from the weekend, everyone's brand new. You're walking to a brand new list of patients. It's hard to make Monday morning education sessions, so I think, after kind of a lot of discussion, Dr. Muller is very, very, very supportive and through all this. We've kind of revamped the timing of when we do lectures, when do we do morning reports. Is it geared towards PGY2 focus? And then the senior carries a pager so they can actually listen and learn. So I think those are all changes that kind of come up, and we have a resident meeting in a couple tomorrow. And maybe something else will change. Who knows? But I think that's part of the beauty.
There are two great questions here, and I'm going to take them in order. We have until 8:30. We probably won't go that long, and respectful of everyone's time. But they're the last two questions. So I'm going to ask, or the last three questions, but I'm going to ask Claire Lambert's question for a few of the residents. And I think this is really important. One of the reasons we're doing this really is to support our MS4s around the world and people applying around the world and during a very difficult time. And I think they would depend on your wisdom as they're applying. So I actually might run through all of you, or at least some of you, if you wave your hands. If you would give yourself any advice when you were an MS4 about anything to do differently, what would it be? So maybe you can wave. I'll let anybody take that. That's a tough question, but I thought a great question. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not super far out from what MS4 was. I don't think I'm that disillusioned yet. It's all been going great. And honestly, when you're just getting done with medical school, and especially this year where you're going to be meeting a ton of people, meeting a ton of programs, and now, virtually like this, it's going to just be important really just to try and get the best vibe that you can from that group. For me, a lot of my decision making, especially during the interview season, was done, on the day with my interactions with the residents, with my interactions with the faculty. And that will be different this year. And I'm hoping these events are at least somewhat helpful for you all. I know it would be a little bit difficult, but I think venues like this are going to help. And the best that you can get from the people will be, informative moving forward. Especially kind of like narrowing things down on the interview day themselves. But otherwise, you should really just enjoy this time. I think I was always told, don't do anything, don't stress. Just enjoy your last year, enjoy your classmates, enjoy the relationships you've really been able to foster, because they're going to help carry you through what's going to be, a very, time-consuming, educational, rigorous 4 years. So I'd really, give yourself a break this year as best you can too, and really get close to everyone that you've been getting close to. I think that was important for me.
Kevin?
Yeah, so the thing that I would say, because I think for most people, MS 4-year is like one of the more laid back years of medical school. And I think a good thing that you can do, I mean, this is just like a general piece of advice, not really related to the application process, but more to like your wellness moving forward, is like try to spend this time like identifying the things that you need to do to feel well, because you're going to want to be able to efficiently do those things when you're a resident and you're, especially like intern year, it's like everything is new, right? Like you've learned all this stuff, but like clinical medicine is different. And you're going to want to know what the things are that you can fall back on that make you, feel good and fulfilled. So I would say, spend some time this year, like really identifying what those things are for you. And maybe you already know. And if you do great, you're ahead of the game. But if not, I'd say like put some serious thought into that, because that's really what's going to keep you going moving forward. Like residency is hard no matter where you go. And, it's important to know what sorts of things you can lean on to make yourself feel good.
Amy?
That was really well said, Kevin. Very well said. And I 100% agree with that. But I think kind of the other thing that I think is really important is MS4 is traditionally a pretty light year. Use this time to really get to learn about yourself, to know yourself, not just the things that kind of make you feel well, but who are you? What are the things that drive you? What makes you excited and passionate, and just really kind of understand yourself. Because I think once you really know yourself, then it's where you want to go and what path you want to go on, and get it, you'll get a better idea. It'll be easier to get a sense of what fits you best. So there's a lot of time, and COVID gave us all a lot of time to be introspective, and use it, because I think it'll kind of give you a lot of guidance. And also enjoy your life, take that vacation, or go where you can, enjoy your time, get some hobbies, read some books, enjoy. You have many years in residency to do the rest.
Katie?
I would say my biggest piece of advice in terms of at least speaking to the application process is just to trust your gut. If you're a very detail-oriented person, which I am, you may be tempted to write down every single little fact about every program and how many callers they have, and like which days of the week they have food at their conferences and things like that, and put it all in a spreadsheet and go crazy. And then you could spend time agonizing over all of those details and trying to figure out which one is the most important to you, or you could just kind of throw most of that stuff away because it doesn't really matter, and just think about, kind of like Erin said, like how you felt on that day, talking to those people, if it was somewhere that you could feel like you could really see yourself. And I realized, you're not going to be physically here with us in the same way, but if you felt good at the end of the day, I would listen to that and keep that in mind, and don't agonize so much over your rank list. And rank according to how you feel, not according to how you think the program feels about you, because how they feel about you doesn't actually affect where you will match. So just do what you want to do.
I'm respectful of everyone's time. It's 8:01, and I know that some students probably have more of these webinars to attend. I will stay on a little longer, but for those who have to leave, I think this has been fun from my perspective. It's really nice to hear from our residents too. I always say this, but I'm so proud of all of you. I really am, and of your growth, and you hear that a lot. And I'm really excited to meet the next group of people that we'll be proud of as well. So we'll stay on. Don't feel bad if you have to leave now, because there were several other questions, and I think we'll have to do another one of these and maybe do some deeper dives into some of the different aspects. So this is like the bonus track in a podcast, so we could just talk about a few things. So one question that came up was about engaging with the community in New Haven, and which is a very diverse community. And it's something I think we can acknowledge as a department we haven't done as much, but have moved towards doing more of. Are any of our residents here on the community outreach subcommittee of the? Gabriella, did you want to speak to sort of where we stand with that? I know we're sort of in the discovery phase as we stand.
Yeah, we've had a lot of meetings about this topic. It's really an area that we have room to grow, room to improve. We're still in the planning stages, but some of the thoughts we have are engaging with the community from the perspective of clinician and patient. So something like a free clinic, there is actually one already that internal medicine and the subspecialties are involved in, but getting involved there. There's a refugee clinic as well. So volunteering our time. Also connecting with the community, not on that level, but more so in terms of, community outreach, cleaning up streets, participating in fundraisers, in marches and things like that. So we're really in the brainstorming phase. We're trying to get involved with members of the community, try to get a really good sense of how we can best serve and where the gaps really lie, and really educate ourselves on why that's happened and how we can prevent that from happening.
There's a few more questions to go through, but we might have to save them for another time. The future of the neurology department, you're looking at it. Several of the people will be staying here for residency. Maybe we'll pull Amy back from New York at some point. And we really do have a strong interest in recruiting from our residency, as many programs do, and have had a strong growth in that. And we've had an enormous growth in junior faculty members, and it's going to be exciting to see them grow as well. And in terms of preference for scholarly engagement, so there were several questions about international graduates. So formal PhD postdoc is not necessary. Again, not to be too specific, but I would say we're going to take a holistic view at all of those things. Several of our residents are committed to other meetings and things like that, so they may be dropping offline. But I would just say that we will, like I said before, we will look at all of the applications, everyone. All right, let's see. I'll give a couple more minutes to type in any comments, and then we'll call it quits, and I'll go home to our families. And then we are available on Twitter and all the things. TikTok, apparently. I don't know if you can answer questions on TikTok in dance form. And we should do another one of these.